Hi, this is part 9 of a series entitled Endtime Bible Prophecies. We're discussing what the Bible is actually teaching concerning prophecies, the end of the world, and so forth and so on. We already mentioned in Matthew chapter 24 that when the Bible mentioned the end of the world, it was not talking about the end of civilization or the planet or the earth. It means in English the end of the age. Achion is the Greek word used, and it doesn't mean the planet, it means the age. Now, when we get talking about these things, the questions immediately arise, such as in Matthew chapter 24, verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And so, coming in clouds, the sun and the moon being darkened, all the nations of the earth mourning. Did that happen in the first century? And most people can't see how this could be fulfilled back then. And I don't blame them. Because unless you understand what these terms are actually saying, unless you realize Jesus is using Old Testament metaphors, you would think that these things could not have yet been fulfilled. I do want to mention too, when it says all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, notice it says tribes. And the earth in the Greek language also means the land. So all the tribes of the land. Which land was Jesus in? Israel. Did not the land of Israel have tribes making up her system of government? Yes. The tribes of the earth, or the tribes of the land, are the tribes of Israel. This is localized judgment. That's why Jesus said, you folks standing here are going to see all this happen. When you see the temple destroyed and all these other things in your lifetime, you're going to see the end and all of this fulfilled. It wasn't the end of the planet, the end of an age had occurred. But it also mentions coming in clouds. And so did Jesus come in clouds? Well, you've got to go to the rest of the Bible and recognize that Jesus was using Old Testament scriptures and thoughts. In Isaiah 19:1, the burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud and shall come into Egypt. And the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence. The heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. Now, coming in a cloud was an Old Testament metaphor for coming in judgment. In Jeremiah 4:13, he shall come up as clouds, and his chariots shall be as whirlwind. His horses are swifter than eagles. Woe unto us, for we are spoiled. In Jeremiah 4:14, O Jerusalem, was thine heart from wickedness? Wash thine heart from wickedness, that thou mayest be saved. How long shall thy vain thoughts lodge within thee? So he's coming in judgment to spoil Jerusalem, and he's speaking of coming in clouds. And so it's an understanding that the first century Christians had that people don't have today, and they miss the cultural idioms and metaphors and literalize them or naturalize them. In Ezekiel 30:3, for the day is near, even the day of the Lord is near, a cloudy day. It shall be the time of the heathen. In verse 18 of the same chapter, at Tahaphnehes also the day shall be darkened, when I shall break there the yokes of Egypt, and the pomp of her strength shall cease in her. As for her, a cloud shall cover her, and her daughters shall go into captivity. See the idea of judgment? Verse 19, thus will I execute judgments in Egypt, and they shall know that I am the Lord. And so his coming in clouds of judgment against Egypt using heathen armies was proposed here in Ezekiel, and the same thing was being said to Jerusalem this time. In Nahum 1:2, God is jealous, the Lord revengeth, and is furious. The Lord will take vengeance on his adversary, and he reserveth wrath for his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. The Lord hath his way in the whirlwind, and in the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. He rebuketh the sea, maketh it dry, drieth up all the rivers. Bashan languisheth, and Carmel in the flower of Lebanon languisheth. The mountains quake at him, the hills melt. The earth is burned at his presence, yea, the world and all that dwell therein. Who shall stand before his indignation? Who can abide in the fierceness of his anger? His fury is poured out like fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. Now, did the hills physically melt when God judged? Did a whirlwind actually sweep across the planet? No, but these were terms used in reference to God's judgment. That's what Jesus was using in Matthew chapter 24. Another Old Testament prophet named Zephaniah had the exact same type of imagery. And it says in Zephaniah 1:14, "The great day of the Lord is near, it is near and hasteth greatly, even the voice of the day of the Lord. The mighty men shall cry there bitterly." That is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet and alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. "And I will bring distress upon men, that they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord. And their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as the dung." And so the Lord's coming is described as coming in clouds in a day of judgment here. And so this isn't speaking of anything other than an idiom when Jesus said he's going to be seen coming in the clouds. Part 10 will continue with this thought and show you other aspects hard to be understood without knowing what the rest of the Bible says.